As I'm sure you'll be aware, the Mr. McMahon Netflix docuseries is premiering next week. That is being released globally on the Netflix platform on Wednesday. And a press call has just taken place in the last hour with a few key figures in the civil lawsuit against Vince McMahon, John Laurinaitis, and WWE. The first name you might be unfamiliar with, Kendra Barkov-Lamy of SKDK, who we're going to tell you a little bit more about in just a moment, as well as the participation of Callis, who is, of course, representing Janel Grant in that civil case. So SKDK have just recently been brought on by Janel Grant's legal team. They are a public affairs company. They've previously represented the survivors of Harvey Weinstein, Jeffrey Epstein, and also Marilyn Manson. And Callis gave a bit of an explanation as to why they've brought on this public affairs company, saying that they've done so due to the way in which Grant has been represented in the media since that civil lawsuit was filed.
Callis opened the call with an introduction to the case and Janel's character, saying that she's a survivor of incomprehensible abuse, assault, and human trafficking at the hands of Vince McMahon, John Laurinaitis, and WWE. She says that Janel's come forward not just to address her own suffering, but also to act for those who are afraid to speak out. She continues to say that due to the extreme cruelty, degradation, and violence she was subjected to on a near daily basis for more than 2 years, she suffers from post-traumatic stress disorder, suicidal ideation, and the inability to leave her home for weeks at a time. She closes the introduction saying that she hopes that Netflix's upcoming docuseries does Janel's story justice.
So throughout the call, which lasted about 25 minutes, which we were a part of, most of it was a Q&A session for members of the press asking various questions. And obviously they're very limited about what they can say about an ongoing case. But it was reiterated that Callis and Janel Grant wish for that civil case to be expedited. They want that to move as quickly as possible. However, because there is a stay on that civil lawsuit in place, which expires in December of this year, it has obviously been a lot slower than expected. So as I say, there was a lot of questions being asked. We're going to give you the sort of Cliff Notes version here regarding the lawsuit. And responding to Brandon Thurston of WrestleNomics, Callis said that they initially received an influx of calls from victims, but due to the stay on the civil suit, they have not spoken to any current victims of McMahon's abuse in WWE while that federal investigation continues. She says that they have every reason to believe that Grant was not the only woman who was subject to McMahon's abuse. She says that McMahon displayed a clear pattern of predatory behavior.
Brian Xylem of PW Torch asked if Janel or her legal team were offered the opportunity to watch the documentary ahead of time, and Callis says they've not seen the documentary yet.
Mm-hmm. It has been previously reported that she was asked to participate. Janel Grant or part of her legal team were asked to participate in that, to which they have clearly declined, which makes perfect sense given the fact that this is an ongoing civil suit.
There could be any number of things that could derail that, so yeah, you wouldn't get involved with it.
Of course. Responding to Chris Vanini of The Athletic, she said that Janel deserves the right to tell her story, not be a part of somebody else's. And that's something that she reiterated throughout the call. During that call, she said time and time again that Janel Grant deserves the right to tell her story on her terms and when the time is right, which makes perfect sense, rather than maybe feeling pressured to do it in a piece of media that you don't have editorial control over. Like you could give an interview and who knows the way that you're going to be portrayed in that final piece of media.
Callis states that Janel was sent to Dr. Carlin Kolker and his clinic Peak Wellness, and that she was given pills and IV and wasn't made aware of what those pills or IV were.
Jordan Mendoza from USA Today Sports asked if Janel has heard from anyone within WWE or people who were formerly with WWE, former WWE employees. Callis stated that they had very brief communication initially, but there has been nothing since then.
Paul Schott from Hearst, Connecticut Media asked how the federal investigation is still ongoing. Callis confirms that it has, later saying that they've not been given any more information regarding the federal investigation.
Essentially, they're very much out of the loop with that, but they did confirm that that federal investigation is still ongoing, but it very much seems like they are not giving updates on the federal side of things, obviously with a civil suit ongoing there as well. Lee Cole from Wrestling with the Devil, who is, of course, the brother of Tom Tom Cole asked about the perception of victims of abuse, with people asking why she came back when she was suffering abuse. In response, Callis said that Janel continues to experience severe psychological distress. She said that Janel Grant was specifically targeted by Vince McMahon and made to feel like she had no choice but to stay silent to survive. And she continued by saying some WWE employees offered her hostility instead of support. There were people aware within WWE that there was some sort of relationship, for want of a better word, there, but she was offered hostility by those people, not going into further detail about what that entailed.
Chloe Milas asked if they'd heard if a grand jury has been convened. Callis said the only thing that they know is that there is an active, non-public investigation. She says it's possible that an indictment could be imminent and that they are hopeful of this happening. Again,
they have no control, obviously, with regard to the federal investigation, and while that's ongoing. But it's something that she really hammered home during this press call, is that they want to get things moving as quickly as possible, but that federal investigation obviously has slowed things down massively. They agreed to that 6-month stay on the civil suit, which expires in December. Mike Rowe from The Wrap asked if any information could be shared on the portrayal of Janel Grant in the media. As we mentioned earlier, they were perhaps unhappy with the way that Janel has been represented by various media outlets, not naming anyone. Callis simply stated that Grant deserves justice, deserves her day in court, and that Janel Grant is not a WWE storyline. So there is an abridged version of that 25 or so minute media call. If you want to listen to that full press event, you can head to the Cultaholic podcast feed. We'll leave a link in the description if you do want to hear the same thing. With regard to the ongoing investigation, there's been a few comments this week. This first one you might be familiar with. This took place during a Q&A at Comic-Con Northern Ireland. Mick Foley was asked about his thoughts on the Vince McMahon WWE and John Laurinaitis lawsuit, and he said,
I genuinely liked him. I mean, my relationship was never the same with him after I left WWE and went to TNA for 3 years. To this day, I'm still trying to find an address to write to him, just to thank him for taking a chance on me. I think all of us are a combination of good traits and bad traits, and you hope your good traits outweigh your bad traits. Perhaps it seems that Vince got it backwards there for a little while. I really feel bad that someone I care about got into something that seems pretty unsavory. I'm going to hold off judgment until I see the docuseries. But I think that one thing that's unfortunate is whatever he did or did not do, I don't think many of us are allowing that mess to mess with our memories. He was instrumental in creating some of those memories, so I think I'm choosing to appreciate him until I learn more about what may have gone down.
I think it's very, very difficult when you're put on the spot. John Cena came under a lot of fire for some of his comments regarding Vince McMahon, and obviously they had a relationship which has in the past been described as like a father-son relationship. They had a very close relationship. Mick Foley obviously put on the spot, maybe not expected to be asked about Vince McMahon. He's given an answer there, which I think to say that he's going to wait until he sees the Netflix docuseries isn't the fair thing to do.
No, you got to wait until it's all had its day in court, and when everything else has seen the light of day. Because again, as you mentioned earlier, editorial, anything can be sort of taken out of context and used in a slightly different way. Not that I'm saying it is being, but like at the same time, there is always that possibility, right? So I think that a Netflix docuseries, fine, but when you have an actual potential massive legal case that's about to be undone publicly, that's where the real facts are going to be. That's where all of the information is going to be that will give you the information to help you actually make up your mind. And I understand, he has had a close relationship with Vince for a large part of his career. And as you said, he maybe wasn't expecting to be asked about him, but it just, yeah.
They had a relationship where Mick Foley was pushed as a massive global superstar. Mick Foley arguably owes a big part of his career to Vince McMahon, so you can understand why you would say something like that. And I just don't think you should base your thinking on somebody, even based on your own perception of that person. And what you see isn't necessarily what you see behind closed doors. But to say that he's going to wait for the Netflix docuseries, this is going to be 6 hours of media, right, to consume. 6 hours. And I would assume that the Janel Grant portion and these allegations will probably comprise 90 minutes of that, maybe even just the last episode of that. And so you're getting one perspective there, aren't you? It's going to be a fascinating watch, no doubt, but you shouldn't base things. Let it have its day in court. That's exactly what you said. And another ex-WWE talent commenting on this, Jonathan Coachman, during a recent appearance on the Gabby AF podcast, he addressed the allegations, noting that the disgraced Vince McMahon doesn't have a normal social life.
He said, "I've never commented on the allegations, but I think they're disgusting. I think they come from somewhere. And also, if you've never been around Vince, not only is he intimidating, you probably have more than a few friends that on a Saturday afternoon or a Sunday afternoon, you say, hey, the football game's on. Do you want to come over and watch it? Vince doesn't have one of those people in his life. Not one. Doesn't have a friend that's like, hey, you want to go have a drink?" Continuing, he expressed his belief that those who appear to be McMahon's friends, such as John Cena, Brock Lesnar, and Pat McAfee, are only seen with him in public settings because they want something from him, adding,
"That to me is a sad existence. I don't care how much money you have. What relationships did you leave behind? Vince has screwed up every single one of them." So not so forgiving from Jonathan Coachman. Again, I'm. It seems weird to say I'm looking forward to seeing the documentary, but it is. It's essential viewing. It's not going to tell the whole story. I don't think you can do that in 6 hours, and it's going to be very, very different, obviously, from the documentary they originally set out to produce. Vince is historically an enigmatic figure. Nobody knows the real Vince McMahon, and maybe this will give us a little bit of an insight into who Vince was. But again, it won't tell the full story, but I'm sure everybody will be watching it. Thank you very, very much for joining us this evening for this late news video. Again, if you want to listen to that full media call, it's on our podcast feed right now, and you can head to cultaholic.com/podcasts if you do want to listen to the full thing. Take care of yourselves. Thank you very much. Goodbye.